Have you ever wondered about the fascinating and often fraught relationships that unfolded within the pages of the Bible? One such tale, woven into the life of the patriarch Abraham, is the story of Sarah and Hagar. Their lives intersected in a way that left an indelible mark on the course of history and the foundation of faith. In this video, we'll delve deep into their captivating narrative, drawing from the rich tapestry of Scripture to illuminate their journeys and the lessons we can glean from them. Our story begins with the ancient figure of Abraham, a man whose name is synonymous with faith and obedience in the Abrahamic religions. He's often called the father of many nations and is a pivotal figure in both the Old and New Testaments of the Bible. But the story of Abraham is not solely about one man's faith. It's also about the women who played significant roles in his life, Sarah and Hagar. The story of Sarah and Hagar is a story of faith, trust, struggle, and the fulfillment of divine promises. These women, though different in many ways, are two pillars upon which the foundation of Abraham's legacy rests. In the book of Genesis, we first encounter Sarah, who was originally named Sarai. She was the wife of Abraham, but for many years she was unable to bear children. This was a heavy burden for her, as it meant she could not fulfill what she believed to be her primary purpose, bearing a son to her husband as the Lord had promised. Genesis 16 verse 1-2 tells us, "Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, 'The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her.' Abram agreed to what Sarai said. This is where Hagar enters the story. She was an Egyptian slave in the household of Abraham and Sarah. When Sarai was unable to conceive, she made the difficult decision to offer her maidservant, Hagar, to Abraham as a surrogate to bear a child on her behalf. It was a cultural practice of the time, but it was a decision that would have far-reaching consequences. Hagar becomes pregnant with Abraham's child, and her status changes as a result. Her pregnancy leads to tension in the household as Sarai's original plan begins to unravel. Genesis 16 verse 4-6 tells us, "When Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abram, 'You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me.'" Sarah, now feeling slighted and troubled by the conflict between her and Hagar, takes matters into her own hands. She mistreats Hagar, and Hagar eventually flees into the wilderness, where she encounters the angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord appears to Hagar by a spring of water and gives her guidance and a promise. In Genesis 16, verse 10-12, the angel says, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count. You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery." Hagar, who was initially mistreated and marginalized, receives God's divine promise, and she returns to Sarah's household. She gives birth to Ishmael, and this child becomes the beginning of a great nation, fulfilling God's promise to Abraham, although not in the way Sarah had originally intended. Sarah, on the other hand, faces her own challenges. As she and Abraham grow older and still without a child of her own, she begins to lose hope. In Genesis 18, verse 10-12, we read about an encounter between Sarah and the visiting angels. Then one of them said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. Sarah laughs at the thought of becoming a mother in her old age, which leads to a remarkable response from the Lord. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Genesis 18, verse 14. These words remind us that even when our circumstances seem impossible, God's power and promises transcend human limitations. In due course, Sarah miraculously conceives and gives birth to a son, just as the Lord had foretold. They name him Isaac, which means he laughs, signifying the laughter that initially greeted the idea of Sarah becoming a mother. This is a testament to the fulfillment of God's promise and the joy it brings to Abraham and Sarah. As Isaac grows, Sarah becomes protective of her son and concerned about the potential influence of Ishmael on him. In Genesis 21, verse 9 to 10, we learn of a significant event. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham was mocking, and she said to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." Sarah's request greatly troubles Abraham, as Ishmael is his son. However, God intervenes to provide guidance. Genesis 21, verse 12 to 13 records God's response. But God said to him, "Do not be so distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your offspring." This is a pivotal moment in the story of Sarah, Hagar, and Abraham. God's assurance to Abraham is twofold. Isaac will be the chosen one through whom the covenant continues, and God will also bless and make a great nation of Ishmael, the son of Hagar. Abraham, though deeply conflicted, ultimately obeys God's command, and Hagar and Ishmael are sent away into the wilderness with limited supplies. They face immense challenges as they wander in the desert, and Hagar reaches a point of despair. Genesis 21, verse 15 to 19 recounts Hagar's desperate moment in the wilderness. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down about a bow shot away, for she thought, "I cannot watch the boy die." And as she sat there, she began to sob. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." In this moment of desperation, Hagar and Ishmael experience God's provision and protection. A well of water miraculously appears in the wilderness, saving them from certain death. This well becomes known as Bir Lahai Roi, which means the well of the living one who sees me. Hagar's encounter with God in her moment of despair highlights his compassion and care for those who are marginalized and vulnerable. The stories of Sarah and Hagar are intertwined with themes of faith, obedience, promise, and the intricate workings of God's divine plan. They also shed light on the complexities of human relationships and the consequences of impatience, jealousy, and attempts to fulfill God's promises in our own way. So, as we conclude our exploration of the story of Sarah and Hagar, we are reminded of the rich tapestry of human experiences, faith, and God's sovereign hand at work. Their lives, marked by struggle and triumph, serve as an enduring testament to the faithfulness and providence of the Almighty. If you found this video informative and insightful, please subscribe to our channel for more engaging content that delves into the captivating narratives and lessons from the pages of the Bible. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the story of Sarah and Hagar in the life of Abraham.